Hey guys, it's Elon from Inside Fighting, and we're going to jump right into this style. We're going back to the original format where I review martial arts, and someone in the comment section asked me to look at this one. My instinctive desire was to put it down, but upon deep diving, I found a lot of good, and I'm going to share it with you guys, because what's the point otherwise? What's the point? Here we go.
Pow, pow. Inside fighting, yeah. Dangerous martial arts. Pow, pow. Ooh, ah.
All right, guys, if you want to support the channel, before I get started, go to InsideFightingStore.com. I released just yesterday or 2 days ago the next part of the raid instructional. This one's really good. It's very, very technical. And the third one's going to be even more crazy because as you learn more, I can show more. So go check it out. The raid series is going to be fantastic. It's my own system, rapid, aggressive, intelligent defense. And as I always say, if you don't like it, it's a really good street fighting system. You can tell me, hey, I hated it. I didn't get anything out of it. And I will refund you. All right, jumping in. The style I'm reviewing is called Kosho Ryu Kenpo. Now, I'm not sure if they spell it with an N or a P. Apparently, it's with an N in a lot of cases, but you just keep seeing Kosho Ryu Kenpo spelled differently wherever you look. And okay, so here's the deal. It was passed down to this guy, Bruce Juchnik from James Mitose. I might be pronouncing those names wrong, but I'm doing my best, folks. The style is interesting. My instinctive need is to, and I'm going to put this over here. Let's go full screen and just share what's going on over here, folks. On this other computer, medium size, bigger, and even bigger. So here's the deal. I'm going to play this video and talk over it. And if you look, I think we're all going to have the same visceral reaction to watching this video. Anyone who does martial arts, especially combat sports or any type of resistant alive training, has learned over time that these kind of things are somewhat of a waste of time. Like I'm just touching you and I'm hitting you and it's causing these extreme reactions. Now, I'm going to point out the negatives first in the system. Number one, they clearly don't spar enough. They don't react to real aggressive force, real aggressive pressure. And you see that here in their training. I might be wrong. I'm going based on what I could find online. I did find some sparring, but the problem when I did find the sparring is the same thing I find with all these systems is that it just looked like very wild point fighting karate or very wild, full contact striking. And I have some examples of it. Now, what I want to say here, again, if we're just looking at negatives and kind of what my initial visceral response was to this, is that styles like this do not really understand real fighting. They don't really experience what real aggression feels like, and they become highly theoretical. And this is a trap that a lot of martial artists fall into, this kind of highly theoretical. And the system calls it out. It says it about itself. It says a principle-based system. These are all principles. Like, oh, I'm going to move your structure. I'm going to take you down this way. But in real chaos, in real sparring, in real fighting, more importantly, all these things go out the window. Now, this is the same trap Sistema falls into. In fact, this is why I said it kind of reminds me of the baby of Sistema, Kenpo Karate, and maybe some Aikido in there. Because they have this very soft wave your body approach, and every tap, causes such a big reaction from the uke, from the guy who's the dummy. Now, the guy who's the dummy here, this is Bruce Juchnik on the left. The guy who's the dummy here is actually has very good body mechanics. I'm going to show a lot more of his videos. I'm actually quite impressed with him. But you could see this kind of soft approach. I'm just going to touch your face. This is trap number 3 that a lot of martial arts fall into, which is idolization. You idolize the person who's teaching you to the point of overreacting to every little thing they do. This creates false reactions. In a real street fight with adrenaline like that, in a real street fight with adrenaline, with intense aggression, like I said, these little taps do not get the response you often think they will. But this martial art relies on that change in body mechanics for its next strike. And Kenpo falls into this trap too. Sistema falls into this trap. The tap to the I'm going to tap your chin up, to I'm going to drop into your solar plexus, to I'm going to roll my elbow in, to a back fist, to a reverse fist, to a drop-in fist here, to a punch here, and I'm going to block your punch and hit you here. And it's so complex, and each one of those movements is getting such a big body reaction that you just don't see this in reality. Now, I know what they're going to say. This is just a demonstration. They're just showing a little bit, but this is still the way they seem to train a lot of the time. And so, yeah, unfortunately for me, folks, that's a big negative. Now, let's just jump into a little bit of how they spar, because I brought that up. Let me make this full screen over here, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see kind of the frustrating, like this is already now point fighting. This doesn't look anything like the previous way they fought. And again, in all fairness, this is a whole different school. I don't know if they're 100% connected to the original school, but you see that drop? I want to show that again. I see this all the time in point fighting systems, where someone throws a crazy kick and just rolls on the ground and does that. If you have any street awareness, why would that be your reaction? Like, this kind of training has always confused me. What is the actual goal here? Because you're not actually training for a street fight when you do this. If you're willing to just drop down and roll to the ground after a kick or run through the person like that, I mean, you might be building speed. You might be building, hopefully, accuracy. You're at least reacting to something. But again, did a cartwheel, landed on his back. That's the end of the fight. That's it. In a street fight, you're getting your head stomped. So, yeah, again, at least they're sparring, these guys, which I have to commend them. But, and as you can see, YouTube popping up in the background, people dislike this. Ariana Grande, Fake Ninjas Exposed. You guys are getting an inside peek at my playlist, apparently. I don't know what Conan O'Brien and Ariana Grande are doing there, but there they are. And so, again, anytime I see a martial art where they spar completely different than they train, if you're going to train in close quarter combat with taps to hits to movement to another hit, then why not just spar that way and do your best? At least apply your system. Here we got another one, and this is the guy I was talking about. And you're going to see a little bit of a better, in my opinion at least, better application of body mechanics. Now, in all fairness, this guy says he trains Filipino martial arts too. But his body mechanics and his movement are nice. Now, I've said enough negative, and I want to get into the positive. You can see there's a little eskrima stick on the ground. But, okay, so they actually do have good principles for all the bashing that I said. By the way, if I was going to say it's a love child of something else, when he starts moving, you really see it's a love child of silat also. Just by the way they move inside to outside, the way they play with the feet and the angling, the diagonal angling, it's very silat-like. And if you've ever seen Guru Danny Nasanto, I was lucky enough to have trained with him for a while when I was in California. If you look at his version of silat, it has a lot of this kind of principle behind it. Now, what I'm going to say about this is first the positive, because I've said a lot of negative. This actually generates incredible coordination, incredible awareness of body mechanics. And as much as I said before, like he's stepping on the foot here to off balance, again, a very silat thing. And even the entries are very silat-like. Now, as much as I said before that this type of training doesn't prepare you for a fight, I agree with that. If it's all you're doing in isolation. In other words, if this is how you're training and this is the trap, you're not actually learning how to fight. But if you do it the way he's doing, like that was a beautiful sequence of exchanges there. Like, look at how he understands this guy's balance and his body. Okay, he's off balancing him with the shin. He's aware of every tap, every location on the guy's body, enough to manipulate him. Now, is the guy having some slight overreactions in some cases? Sure, but not as extreme as the other people. He's kind of just taking it and going with it until the point where he feels he has to be taken down. That was really beautiful, in my opinion, in terms of an understanding of body mechanics, of understanding of angling and of movement. There is a place for this in your training. This does make you better. Makes you better if it's a supplemental thing. Here he's doing Filipino martial arts. So in my opinion, there is a place for this kind of training. I don't know if the Kali sticks are part of Kosho Ryu. They advertise this as part of Kosho Ryu Kenpo. But again, he's the number 2 guy alive right now in the system. Now, we'll see some of the principles that he actually applies. And again, I'm going to keep saying the good. Because I'm one of those people, like, if we're not looking at the good, what's the point of this video? If we're not learning from this, then what are we doing here, folks? We want to at least see what we can pick up and apply for ourselves. So he has a great principle here that he's covering. What he's talking about here is how you have to be able to read a person's body before they attack so that you can preemptively attack. I like this principle. Let's just watch. I think this is a great principle. He's saying just judging by his calves and the way he's on his feet, he feels like the guy's going to throw a rear roundhouse kick or a right punch. Feels like he's loading up for a rear punch. And he says it doesn't really matter what he throws as long as I have a read on where his balance is. The second he moves forward, I just step in and attack. This is a sound principle. This is not a bad principle. Again, the only thing these guys are missing is actually applying it against a fully resisting opponent. You see, this is the idolization overreaction type thing, where everyone's like cheering you on and laughing because you touched a guy and he has like 13 flips, and all of a sudden you don't even have to touch him and he's passing out. We're in the no-touch knockout world. Like, this is the slow transition to insanity in martial arts, in my opinion. But his body mechanics, very good. And maybe that's because he cross-trains. His understanding of balance, incredible. And if you take these principles, they make you a little bit of a better fighter when you're actually in there sparring, in the thick of things. Because in those moments of chaos, you might see a foot, or you might have more sensitivity, or you have a slightly better reaction time. It's why people like Rose Namajunas do the Panantukan or Pangamo drills. Look at that overreaction. Look at that cartwheel. One more time for you folks. Look at that. This guy's trying harder than a girl you just gave $100 to at a strip club. This guy's really going for it when he flips. Not that I've ever been to a strip club. I'm an innocent man. But it's the overreactions that get me. So he discusses another principle. And look, okay, so that's again, he's having kind of cool reactions here. Like, if I was going to practice a martial art as a supplemental style, that I wanted to get more awareness of people's balance of their body, of where their wrists are at all times. And then please don't go to the ground unless you actually train real ground fighting and like you're a legit jiu-jitsu, sambo, judo, wrestling person. And if you aren't and you want to go to the ground, then just cross-train. It's not that big a deal. Get your ego out of it instead of pretending you know how to ground fight when you don't know how to ground fight. Like, that's one of my biggest pet peeves in martial arts. It's like all of a sudden you're teaching ground fighting, but you're a striking system. Why not just learn how to ground fight? Okay, so again, he's has good principle. Crowd the space. And a huge part of this system is about taking away space, so that as the strike is coming, you get too close for the next one to happen, and then you can manipulate the body. Also, beautiful power generation. It's another good thing I noticed about these guys. They know how to wave their hips. So if we're just going to look at this, like he did it right there to generate the throw. But if we're going to look at it, they do a lot of what I've seen in other systems that hit really hard, which is kind of like they know how to move their hips very tight and very quick. Boom, boom, and it generates a ton of force. I think it's one of those things that has to be felt to be understood. So I've learned not to be as critical of body mechanics, because sometimes you see someone move and you're like, oh, that's stupid, but then you feel it hit you. And that's why I'm saying I imagine this actually hurts quite a bit. And until you feel it, you're like, oh, I didn't think it would hurt like that. And then it's a totally different world once you're in there and you actually experience it. There's a couple other videos here. I'm going to share them just because I think it's worthwhile for us to watch this together and enjoy it together. Because why not? He has some good principles. One of the things that I like that he talks about is he says that when you touch somebody, in other words, if you're going to parry their arm and then hit them, you don't want to retract your body, or you don't want to over rotate your body, because you leave yourself open to getting hit. And this is a good reminder for me. Like, when you're blocking something, wherever your hand is at that time, let it go from there to hit the person. You don't need to retract and do this big punch. You could just put something in their face, and oftentimes that'll generate at least a little bit of reaction so you could set up your power. A lot of boxers do this good. Vasil Lomachenko will just kind of parry your hand down, put his hand in your face, he'll matador you, and then he'll catch you with hard punches after the fact. This was a reminder for me. I like that about this system. They believe in attacking from where you are. It's a systema thing too. And you see how he moves his hip. He's showing how the katas actually teach you this kind of power generation, which is nice also, that they don't just train kata, they train the purpose of the kata. They train the meaning behind it, and they have really nice explanations for it. But here, look, he's talking about over retraction. You see how he's saying here, I'm hitting with my first punch. It's a very traditional karate punch, and then you step in. So that's from the kata. But if you look, he's saying that takes too long, so that's how you should train it. And he asked the guy, do you feel the difference? Of course you'll feel the difference because has better body mechanics here. He's teaching you to hit in a tighter space in a quicker fashion. I'll be damned if this guy has not done silat, or has at least the Filipino martial art he trained has some kind of silat influence. Because if this is all Kosho Ryu Kenpo, I'm pretty surprised just by the similarities that I see. But again, I do like his body mechanics. And this is the type of martial art I would train once a week. That's how I see it in terms of like, if I could train this, how often would I train it? Once every couple of weeks, maybe once a week, to kind of build body mechanics, build sensitivity, do these drills. Because that's what they are in the end of the day. These are drills. These are body awareness drills. And they have to be accepted as such. They're not going to complete you as a fighter. Been talking a lot, folks. I apologize, but I hope you're enjoying the footage. I hope you're enjoying this little deep dive into the system. And again, an appreciation for good body mechanics. Like he gunted there. He did some gunting. Then he attacked the arm after that again, and then attacked the rib cage. Like I can promise you, he hits hard and hits fast. Call me a jerk, but I like seeing tough people. Like if your whole class is filled with overweight people, I worry about the system. I think your martial art has to get you in shape for it to be realistic, at least somewhat. I think it has to be somewhat conditioning, because that's a huge part of fighting. I'm going to show you a drill here that I found these guys doing, which I actually appreciated, and then maybe we'll call it with that. I have one more video I was considering showing, but I feel like I've been talking so much here. All right. So they're just doing a little drill. I like this drill. This is like the start of Kyokushin sparring, where you're bare knuckle punching each other in the body, and you're just trying to use hands and defend each other. No footwork whatsoever. But still, they're taking damage. They're getting tough, and this will burn calories. You'll get more ripped, and they're reacting to something. It's alive. I prefer this training to other types of training. That's just me. In my opinion, that is more effective and more worth your time than virtually anything else. Now, you know what? I'm going to show just this last one. I like his body mechanics here. Why not? You guys are going to have to put up with it. Or just turn off the video. Here we go. So stop hitting the shoulder, not stop hitting. But what I mean by stop hit, I mean, and here he's talking about, again, you see how he over-rotated and he's getting caught. A stop hit, I mean, it stops your punch. So he's not actually hitting you to hurt you. He's kind of just checking you. And you see how he's hitting from right where he was? See how his hand's kind of always in place to at least defend? Much harder in application than in theory, which is what we're seeing right now, theory. To pull this off against someone who's really trying to hit you, extremely hard. And again, he's talking about an over-rotation there. So when you over-rotate, you give the guy an opportunity to come in. See? Now, when you under-rotate, and you do it the way he recommends, the guy does not really have time. That was so much tighter. These are good principles. These are good things to drill. I really can't say that enough. I know people are going to trash this in the comment section, but I actually, when I see him move and when I see some of his principles as a kind of, again, a supplemental conceptual martial art, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. And I like his body mechanics. Moves fast, hits hard, understands hips, understands rooting, sinking. These are all good principles. I just don't know if he puts it into practice. It's all it would take. Such a simple thing, and yet so many people don't want to do it. And it's too bad, because there's a lot of martial arts out there that I feel could get a lot more attention, and he's just reviewing that same concept here. See it one more time. Stop the punch before it's fully extended. All these kind of good principles. But yeah, if only these guys were actually willing to fight full contact, and maybe they are, and we're just not seeing it. I guess this video is an interesting one, because I think what I'm actually talking about is a lot more than just this system. I think I'm talking about all these systems that fall into the same space, because they're all very similar. Martial arts, or the more I research them, the more they're like in a category. They're either theoretical, they're either traditional, which is often things like Goju Ryu, and those are based in conditioning, making your body stronger, kata, form, structure, or they're combat sports. But the theoretical ones are more the ones like Sistema, even Kenpo Karate is a bit more theoretical in the sense that they're kind of always attacking. I'm talking about Ed Parker Kenpo. They're always kind of attacking with these theoretical lines of attack that are repetitive and kind of come at you at different angles, and they train that way. But these all fall into that category, and they all have the same negatives and a lot of the time the same positives. So if you're in that category of martial art, just be aware of it. And I think the only thing you got to do is just start stress testing your system, and you'll get a lot out of it. All right, guys. There you go. That's all I got to say. Like and subscribe, I guess. That would be cool.